Great tutors, they do something very subtle in that they sense confusion before a student says they're confused. It's the noisiest time in human history, right? And I think it's only going to get noisier. And I felt kind of bad because I'm like, you could have just used Claude Code and done this in like a day.
Explain to me, what was the moment where you realized that 15-minute micro tutoring was the thing, and that blending AI with that is the most effective way for people to learn?
Yeah, so the decision to focus on micro tutoring, 15 to 25-minute tutoring sessions. It sort of came from a variety of factors. First, we saw firsthand how broken traditional tutoring was. It was expensive, it was inconsistent, it was very hard to access at the moment students actually needed help. And it wasn't really aligning with like the culture shifts that are happening within the youth and within Gen Z. Number one being, shortened attention spans. As I'm sure short form attention, TikTok, Instagram, um, YouTube Shorts. I mean, they're effectively killing our attention spans, and it's happening to all of us. It's happening to me too, and unfortunately, that is causing a huge divergence in education between students and educators. There's a huge frustration also if we did a ton of user market research before going full time on this, we went to around 25 to 40 different colleges across various socioeconomic tiers to really get like a vast understanding on how education is for a number of people. And there's a huge sort of growing shift and divide between parents and teachers and students, and that can be attributed to the culture changes and also the technological changes. Artificial intelligence is now available for us. I have ChatGPT, which can do my homework in like 10 seconds. So we sort of we were thinking on how do we blend all these different problems, these culture changes, this new technology, this growing divide. How do we look at this vast landscape of problems and create like a solution that can sort of solve all of them simultaneously, or at least attempt to solve all of them, because solving all of them simultaneously is it's like a behemoth of a problem, right? But we want to at least try our hand at it. And we figured that only someone from a Gen Z background could really do it, because we understand better than anyone, what the growing divide is and what we need. So back to your question on how we came up with micro tutoring. Through this user market research, we realized that, students are currently paying $80 to $100 for like a 1 to 2 hour tutoring session once a week. In that session, their attention is around 100% for like the first 20, 25 minutes. And then there's a very sharp decrease in attention. So what does that do? Well, one, it creates frustration with the tutor because they don't feel like, their student is understanding or absorbing the information that is being taught. It also causes frustration with the student because they're not learning, and then they feel like the money that they're, putting into this very expensive tutoring session isn't working for them. And then there's also a growing divide in personalization, and that's always existed. That's not anything new. That schools generally provide a one size fits all approach, which doesn't work. It just doesn't work, right? Every student is different, and we learn at different paces. So given all of that, we thought, okay, if we focus it on micro tutoring, and micro tutoring isn't a new concept. Like, I don't want to say we came up with it. It's starting to become very popular lately because of its effectiveness. So we thought, okay, if we really hone in on micro tutoring and then use the best parts of AI, which is a personalization that it can provide and sort of solving that one size fits all approach, combine those two things together, and then combine the aspects of a human tutor, which I still think, and we can talk about this, is far more effective than any LLM is currently. Um, if we can sort of mesh those three things together, we can create a real user value. And the second benefit of micro tutoring is because the sessions are a lot less in duration. It's a lot cheaper as well for students, and it's a lot easier for tutors as well. Tutors can do multiple sessions at once. So you're able to make your platform far more accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. So y'all are doing some market research, and we should have mentioned, uh, tell us who your co-founder is and how y'all met, because y'all are not at the same school, and there's a little bit of age difference. So I'd love to hear um, how the story was of y'all getting and finding each other.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I met Rod Dean September of 2025 last year. He reached out to me on Y Combinator's co-founder matching platform. And he basically had like a one sentence description. He's like, "Hey, I'm working on this thing where a student can instantly match with a tutor," and that was sort of the foundation of Ethera. So I didn't even enter college at this time. This is pre-college. Like I was still like in the summer of my senior year, and I see this message, and I had been trying to get into startups for a while. So that summer, I built a lot of different cool projects. Like I built like a recommendation algorithm uh for songs, which incorporates your mood in it as well. I built this thing that can sort of predict what food you are craving at a certain time. It wasn't very accurate. But I have been trying to get into this like whole startup landscape for a while. And look at different industries, figure out what the problems are, learn how I can use AI or whatever new technology is out to solve that. So then when he reached out to me, I thought, okay, the idea seems cool. Let's just talk about it, right? I was never opposed. Anytime anyone would reach out to me, I would at least talk to them. So we had a conversation, and his idea seemed really interesting. It was just in the starting phases, but I started to see that, like, while it seems like such a common sense thing, like provide a platform where a student can instantly connect with a tutor, it hasn't been done before. It's been attempted because it's a very difficult business model to sort of crack, similar to Uber, right? Uber had been the similar idea of ride sharing had been attempted many times, same with DoorDash, but the real problem lies in execution. So I was a bit skeptical on, okay, like the idea sounds great. It sounds very like idealistic, but can we actually execute on this? And then given where I was at that time, I was just entering college. I was going to be exposed to so many new things. I was going to meet so many people. Like, do I really want to do a startup like right now? And do I really want to commit to something that's so difficult to pull off? But we had a few other calls, and I really liked his like passion when he was explaining his idea. Like he genuinely was so passionate about it, and he doesn't come from a technical background at all. And in fact, he didn't even know what cursor was, and he was trying to code it by himself and just learn like coding from scratch, like literally going on like VS Code and coding. Didn't use cursor or Claude or any of that. Didn't know what it was. So that kind of stuck out to me. I was like, damn, this guy's putting like 10 hours a day, and I felt kind of bad because I'm like, you could have just used Claude Code and done this in like a day, but. But so his passion stuck out to me. I did like the idea. I had built things within ed tech before in high school, so it was an industry that I was passionate about. So I thought, okay, you know, I'll go for it. I'll be his co-founder, and we'll see where it lands. And progressively, as we started to get traction, and as we both started to get more into it, it just became a full-time thing that I love doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so where are y'all at now? We were talking earlier about there's kind of two different directions y'all are pursuing with the software. And you'll have some great traction in one of those and are looking towards the other. So explain to me where all that is at.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So we launched around 2 weeks ago, and we got a pretty sizable user base, more than I expected. We have around 500 active users on our platform. We've had around 250 sessions on our platform, paid sessions on the platform. And as the sessions were happening, and all of our tutoring sessions happen within our platform. So that's a unique thing about Athera is that we use our own video provider. And through that, we then record all of the sessions, and it's sent to our AI model. So I remember a few days ago, as I was, looking through our model and looking how our model sort of structures the learning data, how it captures student hesitation, how it captures question patterns, confidence shifts, and tutor interventions. I realized that the value that we're currently providing was really just scratching the surface on what we could potentially provide. The value we're currently providing is just matching students to tutors. But really, there's an even bigger value in understanding the behavioral patterns inside those sessions so we can train our own model. right? So great tutors, they do something very subtle in that they sense confusion before a student says they're confused, and they can change their tone, pace, and questioning strategy accordingly. That's something that AI ChatGPT can't do right now, right? As it can't respond to you, it doesn't see how Turner is currently absorbing the information. At what tone is he, talking into ChatGPT? And what emotions he's currently feeling, right? As I'm sure you know, learning, emotions, these are two things that go hand in hand, and that's why human tutor is still so preferred. So that led me to ask a bigger question. If these patterns are consistent, can we generalize them and can we model learning behavior itself? So I began speaking with various neuroscientist connections and ML engineers about whether these behavioral signals can correlate with cognitive load and understanding. Not necessarily for the purpose of just like detecting human emotion, but more so for the purpose of modeling learning dynamics in real time. And that's when the opportunity expanded. So I thought, what if we could build an interactive AI tutor that does what great human tutors do? A system that watches how someone responds and listens to how confident they sound and tracks hesitation patterns and adapts in real time. So it's not like a chatbot, it's not a video module, it's an active participant in the learning process. So essentially, the core innovation that we're building is a behavioral modeling layer that converts audio and visual signals into a cognitive state estimate, if that
Okay.
makes sense. I hope I was explaining it. I hope I explained it
No,
in
no, there's a lot there, and that's great. So I want to take before we get into this expanding of the role of the AI to hopefully understand those emotions and play the full role of the teacher. I want to jump backwards just quickly. You said the way y'all are currently doing things with micro tutoring is connecting teachers, connecting students and tutors. Explain to me what that does first before we jump into the next thing.
what that so what it does is, um, a student makes a request on our platform, right? I need help in X subject. We currently offer a list of subjects. It's pretty limited as we're trying to build our marketplace. More users we get, the more subjects we offer, etc. Right? When a student makes a prompt, our system then looks at the available database of tutors who teach that subject. And for tutors, their interface is completely different, right? So they have a list of subjects, they sign up for them, they take tests on them, etc. Our system looks at the available database on tutors who are clocked in for those subjects, and then based on our matching algorithm, which is, determined by a variety of factors, but it's more so, like the tutoring sessions, the past tutoring sessions a student does and a tutor does is recorded, right? And our model has around 30 parameters on viewing students and viewing tutor data. So based on that, we can understand how students learn and how tutors teach at a very, very specific lens. So understanding that, we then match the student with the best tutor out of the available database of tutors who teach that subject who are available on our platform right now.
Yeah, that's the genius of what y'all do, I think, because if I learn in a very visual way and require my tutor to be able to describe things so that I can and see them, whereas maybe you learn in a different way where it's okay, well, I need it to be more written or more oral, um, and I know those are probably oversimplifications of the qualities y'all look for, but I think that the amazing way y'all are using the AI to just strengthen the bond between tutor and student is very cool because when I saw it the first time, I was like, "Oh, it's an AI tutor, like it's ChatGPT just in a thing." But no, that's not at all true. It's you're really just strengthening that relationship and helping the tutor be more of a better person and a better tutor for the student, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean that was our goal, starting off with this, because we do realize that, when you have a tutor, there's a connection that you form with them, right? And our
Yeah.
platform where, you basically get a different tutor every time. There might be problems with that. And we do have a feature where you can save a tutor and then request them specifically. But the main you know, the main value we provide is instantly connecting you with a tutor, which may not always be the same tutor. So how do you make that session the most effective is you have to sort of provide that personalization immediately, right? So by having our matching algorithm based on so many features, we already provide you with a tutor that understands you at a pretty deep lens compared to most tutors. And it's also a great way for us to make sure that we maintain our tutor quality, right? We put a very strong emphasis on having the highest quality tutors, and that's why tutors are constantly regraded on a set of metrics on how they conduct themselves, and if they fall below those metrics, they can be subject to removal or suspension on the platform. And if they do something insane, they're out.
Sure. Well, and that got me thinking, I'm sure y'all's retention rate of teachers, tutors, and students will likely be higher too, because they're being matched with the teacher or student that works best with them. So they're not sitting through, oh gosh, this kid isn't getting understanding what I'm saying, or oh gosh, this tutor is not describing things in a way that makes sense to me. Like that's probably part of the micro tutoring as well. You can get more done in less time and have a higher retention and enjoyment of that experience because you're being matched in a way that makes sense for both of the way that you learn and the other person teaches.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, our retention right now has been pretty solid just starting out. And, there have been cases
Yeah.
because when we first launched, my biggest fear was a student logs in and there's not a tutor available for that subject. That was my biggest fear. And that's the hardest part about a marketplace. It has happened a couple of times. It's happened like 5 times so far. And the retention is still when I first, as I was thinking about that problem, in my head, I thought, okay, if that ever happens, a student isn't coming back. That was sort of the assumption that I based myself off. Because there ed tech is a very competitive industry, and if you're not providing the highest quality services, you're gonna lose your base, right? For example, Chegg. Chegg was, I think it was a unicorn a couple years ago. I think it's lost 99% of its revenue or valuation. I mean, I think it might have sold to another company. I don't know what happened, but that's just an example of how quickly you can lose your user base. Um, but surprisingly, we have maintained our user base even when that has happened.
Yeah.
So
And
that
when
was sort of surprising, and it made me realize that one of the reasons might be because Ethereum is so different than any other edtech platform on the market. Like, most so many edtech platforms are like you have a set for K through 12 education. It's like you have a set of subjects, you have a set of structured units and problem sets, and then videos on solving it. Right. And that's the base of many ed tech companies. And I think what Ethereum provides is, that instant tutor feel and then the micro tutoring and then the very low prices that you don't normally see within education platforms. I think there's a lot of uniqueness to it that has kept our retention up.
what is a price for a 20-minute micro tutoring session?
20 minutes would be around $14
$14. And is that set by the tutor or by Athera?
by Ethereum. So
Okay.
we use dynamic pricing. So you can request anywhere from a 10 to 25-minute session, and then each time has like a range of values, like a minimum and a maximum. The difference is very 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 minimum, like maybe a dollar 50 at max, for every available time slot. And then based on dynamic pricing is based on like the demand at the time, what subject you're requesting for, how many tutors are available. So if there's a lot of students, not a lot of tutors, it might be a little bit on the higher end, and vice versa. It might be a little bit on the lower end if there are a lot of tutors and not a lot of students.
Yeah.
But overall, it's pretty stable.
And so do y'all pay the tutors dynamically as well?
Yeah, so we take a cut of the of the price. Currently, we only take 10% as we want our tutors to have the best experience. So, the student makes a payment, goes into our Stripe account, 10% is allocated to our bank account, and then 90% goes to the tutor.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And so now I want to jump into this future plan that you'll have, um, where you are training the artificial intelligence to essentially learn those soft skills, is the way I understand it.
hmm
So, explain to me the vision and how y'all might execute on that.
Yeah, so there's there's a lot that would go into it. I would say it can sort of be divided into four steps in terms of building out the core infrastructure. First, you got to build out the existing AI model that is trained with around 20 to 30 parameters. That after recording every tutoring session that happens on our consumer platform, then analyzes the video. It detects students' hesitation, confusion, etc. All the information you need to know about students, and then also how the tutor is responding in real time, how the tutor is interacting with the student, what tone the tutor is taking. And from that, we sort of train it on like what are the best parts on how a tutor should act and how the AI should act as a tutor, and what are the parts that you should not take away from it. And with all the student data that you're sort of accumulating, you can our AI is sort of trained on a very, very vast amount of student cases and edge cases that can occur when interacting with a student, right? It's sort of trained to interact with any type of student, right? We would need thousands,
Mhm.
tens of thousands. Much of it will be synthetic data, but much of it we want it to be very high quality tutoring data, actual tutoring sessions on our platform. So then you build out the existing AI model to sort of, be able to understand how students learn and how you should act as a tutor. The next step would be to create the human avatar AI tutor with real time interaction that's trained on the behavioral model. And one of the things that we emphasize is lightning fast inference. What does that mean? It basically means it's able to respond to you within seconds, like me and you, right? How we respond to each other. I ask you something, you just respond to it. It's similar to that. There's no delay. And that's sort of a core principle of Ethera. Even our consumer platform, the wait time is around 30 seconds or less to be connected to a tutor. Like we want things to just go fast, fast, fast because we have everyone has things to do, and I think education and is a industry where the products usually have such a big delay, especially when it's about finding a tutor, finding a mentor, finding a teacher. And I frankly think it's a bit ridiculous in this day and age when everything is on the internet, and everyone is on some platform. Like there shouldn't be such a large delay in being able to connect with someone. So we really do focus on making everything very low latency, very fast. The third thing, and this goes to our business model. So currently, the AI tutor it would still be on K through 12 education, but it would be more focused on corporate learning and development. So currently, companies, especially software and healthcare companies, spend billions on compliance and onboarding training. And this literally consists of employees clicking through slides or videos while multitasking. So they're able to, as I'm sure like you have your basic LMS or Coursera or whatever the company wants you to do, and it's just a bunch of videos and you're just like listening to music or something while the video is playing in the background. So the completion is tracked, but the actual mastery and understanding of the subject is not. And I've talked to various CLOs at different software companies and a few healthcare companies, and all of them have described extreme frustration on the current corporate learning and development scene. And it's a very underserved team and very underserved industry in terms of, um, SaaS products. Like almost none of them sort of provide for this specific but very broken and essential component of companies. Because, if you don't have a proper learning and development uh, flow or streamlined process, then you often onboard employees that don't have the training or knowledge to do the job that is necessary. And that leads to layoffs, it leads to delays, et cetera, et cetera. So my initial idea was partnering directly with enterprise corporations. We would build out sort of a what I call a content ingester pipeline, where a company can onboard their library, their training materials, whether it's like a 200-page compliance manual or a training library, and we'd convert it into like a structured, interactive tutoring flow within a few hours. So that's the third thing that we would build, like a content ingester for X company to sort of put in all of their content so our AI fully understands it and is able to teach X employee on that content.
Okay. And then that would be a great application for corporate. Does that transfer anyway into the what y'all are currently doing, which is kind of just the typical tutoring?
No, absolutely. There are definitely applications on this, I guess you could say, AI tutor in K through 12 education. Absolutely. I mean, once you train it on, because K through 12 education has a set curriculum of courses that almost all public high schools across the United States use, right? And that's how we're able to connect students with tutors, right? Because we have that set database of subjects, and we just connect a student taking that subject and a tutor teaching that subject. That's why college providing it for college is so much harder, because the opportunities, the number of courses for college is insurmountable, and every college has a different numbering and curriculum. So it's not really feasible. Although I do think the AI tutor, it might be a little more feasible, because you can train it in a number of hours versus a human. You need a specialized human for college. So yeah, there are huge applications within K through 12, and I do think that in the coming months we could launch something specifically for K through 12 on those set of courses.
Yeah. I was listening to something earlier this week in anticipation for this. Um, it was a school called the Alpha School, which is a fully AI taught K through 12 school where there's still physical teachers in the room, but they're called guides and are more like um, personal uh, growth mentors rather than actually teaching the curriculum. And the AI is personalized to the student and teaching them. But it's not a chat bot. It's something similar to what you're saying, where it's this um, interactive thing that knows where you are at as a student and teaches you the curriculum that's up to your skill level. And what was interesting, what they were doing is, again, similar to y'all, it's they were getting done with school in like 2 hours. So not micro tutoring where it's helping you outside of school, but inside of school quicker because AI is personalizing it for you. And then the rest of the day they get to spend starting a business or going outside and playing games and learning how to work on it with a team, playing basketball, that type of thing. Um, I'm curious what you think about the world becoming increasingly AI with the marketing pushes from AI and seeing videos that are made by it, um, and hearing things like this about, okay, well, education maybe is the time that it takes is going down or jobs potentially being taken away. I know that's kind of a broad net, but what do you think about the way AI is going in the world as someone on the forefront of it?
Yeah, it's a great question for sure. Sort of like an ethical dilemma that even I have grappled with
Yeah.
as I'm building this, because I do. I mean, one of the reasons why I started Ethera, the consumer version of Ethera, is because I see the value in a human tutor, and I always will. I don't think that an AI would necessarily be. I don't think any form of an AI can completely replace a human being in something that requires human interaction or human or just any human like traits. Like for example, like movies, right? I don't think AI movies will ever replace real life movies, or I don't think it'll replace it for us. Like we'll never really feel that same attachment to them as we do, because there's something very. I mean, the human brain, as I'm sure you know, is very complicated. It's we don't even understand it ourselves, right? And the AI is never going to fully understand it either. And that's why I don't, even after launching this, sort of goes back to your last question on can this be used for K through 12. I think yes, in with limitations though. I think it can be a supplement for sure. I think it can definitely widen the accessibility for students. I mean, it's similar to what the internet has done, right? It's widened, and like what platforms like YouTube and Instagram do. It's able to show a vast amount of the world's population. It's able to provide a vast amount of information to a large portion of the world's population that wouldn't regularly be able to access that don't have the tools to access like a traditional tutor, or go to any school or any type of education. So I still think that you know AI can really widen access to a lot of these services. So that's a big reason why I'm very committed to this idea. I think for things like corporate training, this can definitely become the new interface for workplace learning, because workplace learning at the end doesn't require much human personalization. I mean, currently it requires zero. Like there is zero that is being used for it right now. Like if you log into like Coursera or YouTube, it's not really like I don't think watching a video versus interacting with a real time AI tutor is that different, to be honest. The difference is if I'm actually talking to you as a human being, there's a difference in the teaching there. But if you compare those two things, I would rather go with the AI tutor because it can respond in real time, etc. But to go back to your last question, go back to your original question. Is it like a net positive on society? I think I think we'll kind of see with time. I think we'll see with time, and I really do think it's how we how we utilize this technology has such a big part in it. And unfortunately, historically, every technology that has provided us benefit has also been used for providing harm, and I think AI is no different than that. Um, I think that we should always, while building these products, and that's something that I'm working on within Athera actually, is developing a very strong safety team to make sure that, okay, like we are building an AI tutor. It's kind of being marketed as replacing a human, but we are definitely not trying to sell that vision. Like we are not trying to be like, oh, you don't need human tutors anymore. Human teachers are useless. Like use our product. Like that's not like really the vision that we're trying to, or the goal that we're trying to accomplish here. It's more so like we have this interactive AI tutor that is far more effective than learning than your classic LLM. It's not to replace the human teacher, but it's to really provide like a huge supplement to all the other materials you use, right? Like YouTube, Khan Academy, ChatGPT, all these other non-human services that you use. This interactive AI tutor can sort of provide all of that and more. It's sort of how we market it, right? I mean, regardless, students and people of all professions use non-human entities for learning all the time, right? That was pre-AI. We were doing that. So I don't. I actually like to ask you, like, do you see a difference between a student using like Khan Academy or YouTube or using ChatGPT? I mean, these are both still non-human technologies.
Yeah, I think the disadvantage of a YouTube or a Khan Academy is it can't adapt to you in real time. Like you go to Khan Academy and you can see there's one structure of the lesson plan. Um, and if you follow it and understand it all, you're great. But if you get caught up somewhere, it's kind of not ideal. And on the personalization or the interpersonal side of it, yes, there is someone else on the other side, and you're hearing a human voice. Um, but yeah, I think I would have to think more on it, but I would agree at the moment that it feels a lot closer, Khan Academy, to full AI tutor than regular tutor to AI tutor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting to see where we'll be in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's like it really is a very interesting ethical and moral dilemma that we sort of have to grapple with. Is there are so many benefits that this can. I think all technologists sort of have that um the sort of have that dilemma, right?
yeah,
In that we're creating this technology, there's so many benefits to it. There's also a huge drawback to it, though. There are drawbacks, like there are drawbacks with anything that you create, right? And I don't think it's as simple as sort of viewing like sort of like putting the pros and the cons on like a piece of paper and saying like, okay, like do the benefits outweigh the costs? Because it's one, you never know. You really never know. And two, the costs can be the long-term effects, long-term costs can be detrimental. Like it's I sort of I saw a podcast by I think it was Sam Altman. And he was like, I feel like I'm in like an Oppenheimer moment right now where like I have like this crazy technology we have this crazy technology and it's like where do we go from here? So yeah, I don't to be very honest, I don't know. I don't know. I think we should just like, try to do the best we can and just keep having these debates and welcome all opinions and you know never really always just consider everything, um, lay everything out on the table and talk about it rationally with one each other, with everyone, and make sure we don't make any rash decisions that are driven solely by profit. Like I think we should just think about it from more of a humanitarian lens whenever we're building these products.
certainly. And is this something that at Stanford is a common conversation in the CS department? Is this something that um, professors are debating and bringing up in classes and discussions?
I would say so. I would say so. I remember last year, last quarter, in my CS class, we had a big conversation, kind of a debate on AI and education. It's very similar to what what we're building, and on whether you should use LLMs at all or whether you should like limit yourselves. I've had a few of these conversations with my friends on what are the potential ways that we can take AI to either hurt ourselves or benefit ourselves. Like, should we even try to get to AGI? And now they're talking about ASI. Like, should we even attempt to do that, or should we just like sort of, as human beings, as a human race, sort of like stay in our lane and just be like, okay, this is a limit. Like, let's just use what we have right now and try to make the best out of it instead of trying to advance it. Um, I'm personally, I mean, my opinion's sort of in flux. I lean more towards. I think this is just me as a person. I've always been someone who's very curious and wanting to like advance humanities technologies and scientific pursuits as much as possible. So I lean towards advancing the technology, but I do think there should be more regulations and a little more safety measures. That's why I really like Anthropic a lot on what they've done
Yeah,
in terms of safety for their users and really focusing on safe AI. And I think it sort of sets like a good standard for the rest of us.
certainly. It, it's interesting. I don't think you've met him, but my partner Wes, who kind of does all the back end and is a big part of this podcast, he loves using Claude, um, and I've kind of gotten into it a little bit more recently too. And it's interesting the styles and the characters that each of the AIs have. Like to me, ChatGPT is like the blurt everything and use 20 emojis AI. Claude is like the more sophisticated, um, slightly older, maybe a little smarter person AI, and then Gemini is like straight to the point, um, and kind of bland. Maybe I don't know what your thoughts are, but it's interesting to see how like each one almost has like a different personality.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I do think ChatGPT is more of like I think ChatGPT is a little adaptable, but in my experience, it does try to come across as like another human talking to you and giving you advice. Claude, Gemini, you're right. It's definitely the outputs are pretty short. It's very straight to the point. There's no emotion or anything. Um, I think Claude is very
Yeah,
Claude sometimes does seem a little smarter. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that, but just my perception sometimes that like it gives a very like it gives a very structured response. Gives a very long response too sometimes. I don't think it doesn't really speak with much emotion as ChatGPT does. And then there's Grok, which is I haven't really used Grok
yeah,
much, but I've heard a few things. That's more on the human
yeah,
humor side, I think.
yeah, yeah. I've seen some of the crazy things that Grok will say.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Arnav, I want to ask, where do you see Athera and yourself in the next 10 years? In 10 years, what are you doing day to day, and where is Athera? Is it something y'all are still running? Is it sold at that point? What do you see as the vision for it?
In 10 years, 10 years. Wow. Okay, in 10 years, I would say Ethereum would become the new interface for workplace learning, K through 12 education, and college education. It would completely revolutionize the um, learning and development market for corporations. I think it would revolutionize hiring um, as hiring stands now, and talent intelligence for sure. I would say, in terms of it would become the go-to educational product for students um, in K through 12 and college students. I think it would definitely take the next, it would sort of serve as the next step of AI AI inference for sure, and being able to interact and personalize with students. Whether I mean, I have a lot of entrepreneurial ambitions and a lot of things I want to build. I would still like to be committed to Athera. I would hopefully be building a few more things as well. I'm very interested in building in like the climate and healthcare industry, and I would maybe pursue that. Would Athera be sold? Um, Ideally, no. Ideally, no, because I think once this technology gets up and running and sort of, takes over the market, and that's really when the conversation for whether it's going to be sold will even come to play. Once that happens, I think, you know, selling it to a large scale tech corporation for them to like misuse the technology because it is a technology that can be pretty easily misused. For them to misuse the technology or for them to just sort of you know, take it in a completely new direction than what it was meant to do. I think that's a really real possible. I've seen it happen to many companies that are sold. And we aren't really if this was something that I was just building on the side that I wasn't too passionate about, that I was just trying to make a few bucks off, I wouldn't care. But I would say this is something that I genuinely think can impact education so profoundly. And as I'm sure education is really like the starting milestone for impacting it's like a series of events, a chain of events that it will impact. Like it will seep its way into indirectly into so many other industries and so many other so many other verticals. So because of that, I wouldn't sell it.
Yeah, it's awesome hearing the heart behind it, um, because especially in the ed the ed tech world and just the technology world in general, you can build something and make a lot of money off of it. Um, but having the passion behind it too to know, okay, well, this is really uh, there for a purpose is great. So next thing I want to do, I have a quote from your co-founder from his LinkedIn, and he wasn't able to join us today, but I'll ask you instead. I'll read you the quote, and I'm curious what your thoughts are. So this was a LinkedIn post from a couple months ago, and he said, "It's sad I've seen more high school dropouts on this app," referencing to LinkedIn, "than I have anywhere else. There's this hype around growth, startups, and building early that tricks kids into thinking they need to skip straight into adulthood to keep up. Some are doing it right. I've seen it firsthand with people who balance ambition with actually being a high schooler. But a lot of others don't get it. Your age isn't a disadvantage, it's a blessing. You only get one shot at being 15, 16, 17. Sports, clubs, lunch table drama, hanging out, all that stuff shapes you way more than an entrepreneur headline ever will. Yeah, building skills, yeah, experiment, but don't skip the parts of your life you won't get back. Growing up isn't a speed run, it's supposed to take time." So there's lots to unpack there, but what are your immediate thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I don't. I'm not on LinkedIn that often, so I don't actually remember reading that post, but I can fully, see it coming from him. And I agree. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I mean, I think LinkedIn's a great platform. I think it provides so many benefits, but recently, I do see sort of a shift in it becoming like another social media platform where people are posing and posting about things that don't really represent them. They're highly exaggerating things, and it's become more of a it's become more of a less. It's become less of like, let me use this platform to strengthen my career and get connections and find a job. And it's become more like, oh, let me show my 500 connections, like this, all these things I'm doing and all these like all these like posts I have, et cetera, et cetera. And I think to a certain extent, it's fine. I mean, I market on LinkedIn too. However, I do think that an over saturation, I think it's become very saturated. It's become more of like a flex thing. And I think that will have a very detrimental impact. Because, like with any social media, right, where you're trying to portray yourself as something you're not, and other people see that, and other people see like, oh my god, these people were out all night and they're having so much fun, and I'm not having fun. When in reality, those people were probably not having all that much fun, but are just they're trying to portray that they're trying to portray this perfect life, and when everyone tries to portray a perfect life, you know, it creates um, you know feelings of jealousy and feelings of inadequacy. But similarly to LinkedIn, where everyone's trying to pose like a perfect career, a perfect, you know, uh, uh, just trying to portray themselves as like the most cracked people ever, right? It will create feelings of inadequacy between other people, right? It makes other people feel like they're not good enough, and the reasoning for it is just so. It doesn't make sense to me, to be honest. It just doesn't. I see it all the time on LinkedIn, just people posting nonstop. And I get it to a certain extent on you want to build your brand. I just don't think that's the proper way to build your brand. Like, for example, I think most startups that's why you might have noticed we don't post on LinkedIn that much.
No.
And I really do emphasize that because I don't think there's much of a point. Because I think if you just really focus on actually building a product that people want, that people need, that people, can use, and talking directly to customers and consumers and doing more like in-person marketing and more personal marketing rather than just posting nonstop on LinkedIn, it's a lot more effective, right? Like ChatGPT didn't really have to market itself. It's an extreme example, but it didn't have to market itself. It created a very good product that everyone uses. So that's sort of like I would say in the last couple of months, like a mindset shift that has occurred with me. Because I also used to post a good amount on LinkedIn as a high schooler. because I was sort of caught up in this frenzy, and it made me feel productive. It made me feel like, oh my god, I'm so cracked. I'm so this. Like I would look on my LinkedIn and I would get like 100 likes in like a day, and I was like, oh my god, this is so awesome. And there's one thing that people should probably know is that getting views on LinkedIn is not that hard. It's not. It's I mean, compared to like Instagram or uh, Facebook or TikTok, I would say LinkedIn is the easiest platform to get views and likes and comments and reposts by far. So I don't think it's and that's one of the reasons why people like it so much, right? Why this whole LinkedIn influencer thing started because they know they can get a lot of attention through that.
Yeah,
So yeah, I sort of went off a bunch of tangents there, but yeah, I agree with this quote. I think that high schoolers should take it a little bit easy. Definitely, be very curious, like pursue your dreams absolutely, but don't pursue your dreams just for other people to see. Because then they're not genuine.
yeah,
They're not really your dreams, right? Like if you feel the need, if you feel like a burning sensation that like, "Oh my god, I have to tell the world this so everyone around me will just be super jealous." That i that's not the best way to go about it, and you won't achieve true happiness or even true success through that.
certainly. What you said about the people who make the most noise likely not being the people who are having the most impact and execution is very true. When I'm recruiting for this podcast, um, you see a lot of noise. And then when you do a little bit of deeper digging, it's like, oh, well, okay, there's a lot of show, but not a lot of substance behind it. And that's been very interesting to see because you think, oh well, the more you're putting out there, it means you have more, but it's not really true. Um,
Yeah.
so that's always kind of an interesting dynamic to mess with. My
That's
question for
why
you now is, as a freshman, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off. I was just gonna say, that's why Athira, in our hiring process, we really focused on an execution based only mindset, right? Like, I don't care what your resume is. I don't care what experiences you have. It's do you know the basic content? Do you know the basic information needed to, um, you know, perform in your specific domain? Are you willing to learn the additional knowledge that is needed to, perform 100% at your 100% potential in that domain? And are you going to be working day in, day out at completing the tasks? And if you don't complete the tasks, then I can find someone else. And I've realized that a lot. And what you were just saying on there's so much noise out there. It is very like, you have to tune it out, like, you absolutely have to tune it out. We live in, like, the noisiest, it's the noisiest time in human history, right? And I think it's only gonna get noisier. There's countless distractions, in front of us and all around us. There's there's so much I don't think there's ever been more of a difficulty in being 100% focused with all like the stimuli that we have around us, right? So yeah, you have to cut it out, and it's a bit hard. I do a few, I started getting really into like Buddhist meditation a few months ago, and it kind of helped me tune it out. But I would really recommend for anyone watching this on ways to because it's different for everyone on finding ways for you to personally be able to sort of just clear your head and only focus on like, okay, these are like the 5 things I have to do by today. I'm going to finish them by today and then repeat next day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think the increase in noise has caused also an increase in people trying to find different ways to tune it out, whether it is meditation, yoga, working out, uh, whatever it is for people. So
Mhm.
I definitely agree. That's great. Well, Arnav, the last question that we ask our guests is typically what would you tell yourself as a freshman? However, you are a freshman, and are already doing amazing things at that age. So we'll adjust it for you. If you could go back to your freshman self from high school, what would you tell that version of yourself that you know now?
It's a good question. Um, Freshman year of high school, I would tell myself, you know, don't don't be so obsessed or hung up on simply putting things on your resume. As a high schooler, I was obsessed in getting into the best college. I was obsessed with it, and I'm not entirely opposed to students being obsessed about, wanting to go to the best college. Like if they have that competitive drive in them and that ambition, then for sure go pursue that. But I think a mistake I made in my first 2 years of high school is that I was just within that obsession, I was only really focused on just putting things on my resume, not really learning, not really like focusing on my actual curiosities and pursuing that, but just putting things on my resume, putting things on my LinkedIn. And I see it all the time. I mean, it sort of goes back to what we were just talking about with the whole LinkedIn influencer epidemic of just posting on things you've accomplished rather than really accomplishing them. Right. So I would tell myself, focus on your curiosities. I think by that age, I sort of had somewhat of an idea, but I would say, explore a wide variety of paths, career paths, research, what have you, and really explore what you're interested in. And rather than just putting a bunch of things on your resume, just focus on, a couple of those ambitions and pursue them to your fullest extent. And also have a little fun. Have a little fun and, spend time with friends and family. That's very important. And I don't think I valued that as much, spending time with like family as I do now that I'm in college. So I'd say spend some time with family. These are years that you're not getting back. So definitely just like take it a little easy. Because I realized that, once at a certain point, especially with me and what I want in life, I would think most of my life would be work. Like just being very frank with you, I think I'm gonna have a very work heavy life, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Perfectly. I want that. I would be dissatisfied with something that is not, you know, 80%, 90% work. So knowing that though, I would tell myself like, okay, you can enjoy a little bit because it's just gonna be work after a certain point. So have a little fun.
Well, and what I love when I hear you say that is even though it takes a lot of work to be a freshman in college and work on a successful startup, you love both of the things that you're doing, whether it's the computer science at Stanford or the creating an ed tech startup that's going to change the landscape of education. So uh, it ties into what you're saying about don't just chase resume builders, chase things that actually matter. Um, and your resume will be plenty built along the way. So I I think it's great that you're tying those together at such an early age.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I also think this kind of goes back to my co-founder's quote in don't drop out of high school. I don't recommend people do that. Maybe in 20 years I'll be one of those those tech bros that are like college is useless. Maybe who knows? I don't know how I'm gonna be in 20 years. I hope not though, because I don't think I think college and high school too will teach you so much about just life in general, right? It's obviously great for the social experience, meeting people and, forming these like lasting connections and friendships. But I do think from a learning stage, it's still very effective. Like it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect. But I think one of the things about being in a good competitive college is that it will push you very hard, right? And some students, are perfectly fine with self-learning everything and pushing themselves. And to those students, I say, great. Like if that's what you want to do, that's amazing, right? I would say for the majority of students though, right? Like especially, as we were just talking, we live in a world with so much stimuli all around us and so many distractions. College is a good way to get a very structured education and then learn about a lot of different crafts as well. I don't think it's wise for, you to, let's say, CS, right? For if you want to pursue CS, only take CS oriented courses and just become the best computer scientist there is, while discounting all the other subjects and all the other humanities and STEM oriented subjects that you could be taking. I would rather have someone who's maybe not as good as CS, not as good at CS, but you know has that background as well because they're a more structured person. They're a more well-rounded human being. They understand things at a very different, in a more broad lens than someone who does just one thing.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Well, Arnav, thank you very much for joining us today. This was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.